What's going on, guys? Bruce Matson, your host of the show here. And big things are happening. We're about midway through the NFL season. We're getting a good feel of what these players are doing. And it's just good to know that we have a chunk of data to work off now to allow us to project what we want to do with our fantasy teams, what do we want to do with our dynasty teams going forward. Before I dig in, though, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you ring the bell, give me a thumbs up, drop some comments. Let's interact with each other, guys. But let's get this started. And today, I want to talk about JuJu Smith-Schuster. There's been a lot of talk about his usage and how he's going to work with his team going forward. And not just this year, but next year as well. Because his contract is up at the end of the year, and he could be going to a different team. And how that could look like for him, for us, going forward. And then also what the Steelers passing game is evolving to. If you're a Steelers fan, you got to be really excited. You have Chase Claypool blowing up. Deontay Johnson's been hurt, but you've know of him as being a very good player. James Washington's holding his own. He is a very underrated player. And then right now you have Juju's there. Juju's a very good wide receiver in his own right. And then what's really been casting a spell on Juju right now, what's been hurting him in fantasy, what's been making his fantasy owners uneasy is really just the lack of the production. And it's been pretty low, especially compared to where fantasy managers have had to pay for him come draft time. He's just not having to live up to that investment status that we paid for. It's just part of the game. And one thing is, it's not like he's been playing that bad. It's just everyone around him has been playing really good. Chase Claypool, these last couple weeks, has been a monster, and you can only see him improving going forward. He's also been used a little bit in the run game as well, some short end arounds and stuff like that. But he's been hella efficient. He leads all rookie wide receivers in yards per route run. Actually, one of the top in the leagues in yards per route run, actually. And he's just been getting it done. He's got speed, size, mismatch nightmare for DBs and linebackers. So Roethlisberger enjoys chucking it up to him. Deontay Johnson's been out, but when he's back, he's going to be siphoning some targets. And then James Washington gets his too, which he's a Blitnikoff Award winner. He's great downfield. He sucks up them air yards, and he is very underrated. He is a player in Dynasty you need to think about buying because he's so cheap. But he can also be productive, especially if he can get a little bit more targets. If he can snag in some of those deep passes, he's a guy that can help those dynasty teams. But the player we're focusing on today is JuJu Smith-Schuster. It's not like he's a bad player. He's a great player coming out of college. He broke out early in college, and he did well his rookie season. Then his second year in the league, he had over 1,000 yards. Then the year after that, Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. Didn't go so hot, and then this year's not going as well either. So what to think about when it comes to Juju? There's a good chance he's not going to be on this team next year. There's a very good chance, because why should the Steelers pay him a large contract when if he's gone, you still have three very good wide receivers, three comparable wide receivers, and when you take Juju out of the equation, Steelers still have one of the best passing cores in the league. And they can always just draft another receiver. They're good at finding talent in the draft. And next year's draft is just stocked with more talented wide receivers. And I don't see these next few draft classes as being slight at the wide receiver position either. So you have a well of talent that you can dip into. You have three good receivers. Why pay that money? And you can save that cap space and build somewhere else. I could see Juju taking a team-friendly deal. You could also see him going somewhere else. It makes sense for him. So, from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, if you're looking to buy, you're buying with the intent that he's going to a different team next year or sooner than later, and that you're getting him on a team that's more than likely going to use him more appropriately, and he gets more targets appropriately. And that allowing him to be productive is what we saw in the last couple of years. And you're hoping for that. There's a chance that may not happen, but there's a good chance that he could be productive on another team because he is a good player. I want to point out, though, that with him not being able to rise above this passing core and just own a good 30% target share and really command those targets, it does prove one thing, that he is not like the creme de la creme elite level wide receiver. He's not on that echelon of like DeAndre Hopkins or Calvin Johnson's prime, Julio's prime. He's just proved recently that he's not there, because you stick any of those guys on this team and they're going to be soaking up the targets, and Roethlisberger will be peppering them, and it wouldn't matter. They'll figure out ways to get open. They'll figure out ways to get that workload, and that's just proving that it's not in the cards. It's not saying he's a bad receiver. He's actually a really, really good receiver. He is one of the tops in the leagues. It's just he's not creme de la creme, which allows other really good wide receivers to get theirs as well. He's got a 17% target share right now, which isn't bad. When you look at the advanced metrics, what really sticks out is the air yards aren't really there, so he's not getting targeted downfield as often. So he's not really reeling in many deep passes to help elevate his floor. So that is helping him here in the short term. So if he goes to a different team that can use him more and target him a little deeper, then things could look a lot better from a fantasy football perspective. He's also dealing with some variance when it comes to touchdowns as well. So if he can start getting some touchdowns, that could help him out along the lines of fantasy. But we're more than likely not going to see him in a Steelers uniform come 2021, 2022, and going forward. However, to buy him in Dynasty, you're still going to have to pay a pretty penny to get him. And that cost that you're paying for him, it's still a lot of risk. Even though it's discounted compared to what you could have paid for him 18 months ago, it's still a risk because the pool wide receiver talent's so deep right now that you could trade for someone much cheaper. Granted, the upside's not there or may not be there, and take on less risk. Or you could pay for more draft picks or do something else that's cheaper, a little bit less risk because you're not paying as much, and get you similar results or get you closer to those results of what JuJu Smith-Schuster could get you with another team. There's also variance that could happen with another team. He could just command a 22% target share, be a high-end wide receiver 2, and you're paying the low wide receiver 1 price tag for him, and that can really blow up in your face. It's hard to predict that stuff, and it's not a good idea to really pay up for wide receivers, even if they're being discounted this day and age, because the pool's so much deeper. You can get wide receivers in rookie drafts now that are going to produce. We're having 3 or 4 rookies producing at a high level right now. More are going to start popping off soon. Wait for Jalen Reagor to get back. And we're going to have a lot in next year's rookie class that are going to be valuable. And then you got the random wide receivers that pop off, and you just play the matchups with them by seeing who they're playing, paying attention to over-unders, playing them in favorable matchups, and just working them in that way. So you have some options to work with other wide receivers at a cheaper price point where you don't have to over-leverage yourself to buy JuJu Smith-Schuster, even though he's discounted. So I still view him as risk when you're buying him in Dynasty, because one, you don't know what team he's going to, and 2, you still got to pay for him, even though it's cheaper than what he was. I like him. I like him as a player. He's one of my favorite players in the league, actually, but just from a cost perspective, I'd rather just go cheaper at other positions. I'd rather take my chances in rookie drafts. I've been very successful as of late these last couple of years, snagging rookies. You're talking Metcalfs, you're talking Cortland Suttons, you're talking this year's class with Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and all those guys. CeeDee Lambs, Claypools. And the list goes on. It goes on. You got Terry McLaurin's. You could have got those guys for cheap all throughout the years. So that's where I'm at here. I do not want to overextend myself on JuJu Smith-Schuster in Dynasty. Redraft wise, you have to just ride the wave. You can't just drop them for no reason. Because the target share is at 17%. He's still getting targeted enough in some contests where he could be valuable. And it really depends on the matchup, really depends on just what happens from a variance standpoint in that game. Because he's still a good player. It's not like he turned into trash all of a sudden. He's just a really good player surrounded by a bunch of other really good players. And he's not really that much ahead of them, so those guys are getting some of the targets as well. There's going to be a time where he does get it, and you're going to wish you started him or wish you had him on a team to trade him away or whatever you wish you had to do with him. But he's not garbage. He's not a guy you should cut. He's a good player. He's a guy you want in Dynasty. He's going to be falling in startup drafts this offseason. That's probably going to be the cheapest way you can get him is probably in startup drafts come February, March, April when he falls through the cracks. And you're probably talking about 4th, 5th, 6th round type deal, maybe lower. And that's where you're probably going to want to take the risk on him. But right now, if you're trying to trade for him, the price is still going to be a little higher than what you'll feel comfortable with. If I owned him in Dynasty and someone was coming up to me for a trade, I'm probably just more likely to sell him at market value. I'm probably going to try and hold JuJu Smith-Schuster over a barrel because I know there's a chance he could be going to another team, and I know he's a talented prospect, and I'm just not going to just give him away. I'm not giving players away just because they haven't been performing. We're still only 6 weeks into the year. We're hitting week 7. There's still some time to turn things around. I'm not going to be down on good players just because they've had a bad run. Remember the last few videos that I've been mentioning this. Players do not have a straight upward trajectory. It's more like this. Remember the DJ Moore video? He is having some down weeks. Last couple weeks, he's been blowing up, or at least been producing. It could come back and be more favorable for JuJu here later in the year, somewhere down the line. And we've been like, well, we should have just stuck with him. I want to say I'm buying, but I'm just tentative buying him. So I'll buy him if the owner is willing to part ways at a good price. I'm kicking the tires more but I don't think I'm going to come away with many more shares of JuJu Smith-Schuster than what I already have because I don't want to pay that price tag when I know I can get a Rashad Bateman, I can get a Jamar Chase, I can get some of those rookies next year at a cheaper cost, or I can get some of the younger players, maybe like a Darius Slayton, maybe like a Terry McLaurin at a cheap price tag. And go that way, or even down even cheaper. But that's where I'm at right now. So thank you guys for watching the show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button before you head out. Make sure you ring that bell so you don't miss another episode. Because when you ring that bell, when I post, that fires right up to your laptop, phone, computer, whatever you are watching the videos on. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time.